Hi guys, Knife Detector here. So I got this bad boy in the mail a while back, and what this is this is a case whaler knife. According to the type of tank stamp that it has, it's from the 1960s, 65 to 70, I believe. And this knife has been loved. It has been used, and I believe that the person who owned this knife last, before the person I bought it from, really use this knife probably on a day-to-day basis. As you may or may not know, the whaler knife is used mostly for marine applications. I mean, you don't have to use it for that, but usually it's for rope cutting, and people sometimes keep it on the boat and what have you. And this particular knife looks like it did spend some time in the sea. So in looking at this knife, we can tell that this side had a little bit more water exposure and sun exposure than the other side. But let me tell you what, this blade is sharp. And just looking at the way this knife has been kept, I feel that this was probably a daily carry for a person for many, many years. It is an 1199 SHR. And this knife is circa 1965 to 1970, like I said, which puts it a little bit older than me. And I can only imagine what kind of stories the person who used to own this knife has. I wonder if they were military. I wonder if they spent a lot of time on the sea. But what I do know for sure are the following details. The eBay seller I bought this from said that he bought it at an estate sale, and he didn't know very much about that. So this knife survived its previous owner. My guess is that its previous owner carried this in his pocket for many years and used it as his daily carry. If something happened to the previous owner, or for some reason his possessions moved on and they were distributed among people who bought them, then this knife was loved by that person, I can tell. Looking at this knife, you can tell it is very sharp. If this person passed on, he left a very sharp knife, which tells me that he wanted to be ready, and that this knife was probably a part of his normal everyday routine as far as things he put in his pocket. So let me show you this knife closed. As you can see, what happens with these types of knives is that when they get a lot of use over the years, sometimes the blade gets sharpened and used to a point where it will no longer close properly. A lot of people think that once that happens to a knife, that's the end of the knife. But this part of the knife is called the kick. And if you were to file down a little bit of that kick, maybe up to here, this knife would close properly. And I would be proud to carry this in my pocket. And it will continue a life with me for as long as I'm around. And who knows, this knife may even outlast me. What I may also do is I may also try and touch up and polish these handles a little bit. This knife also used to have a bail right here, as you can see, that fell off probably about 30 years ago. And I can tell that on this side, it's got some small dents, like maybe if somebody carried it in its pocket, maybe from change. And this side is much smoother than the other side. So my guess is that this side got a lot of exposure to the elements, or maybe got worn down in somebody's pocket throughout the years. Okay guys, so I'm going to make that little change. I might polish it up a bit, and then the next part of the video I'll show you the outcome. Thanks. Okay guys, so here's the finished product. Just really brief. Some of the things I did was I shaved that kick. So now, as you can see, the blade does not pop out, and there's no sharp edges there that I can accidentally cut myself with. I did give a light polishing to the bolsters, not a big deal, not too much, using the 2000 grit sandpaper, and then I think I used a 3000 grit type of sponge material that I have. And I give a very, very light coating of a cherry wood stain, just to try and match this side to the other side, because this side was darker. So let's see what it looks like. And that's what it looks like. So it's darker. It's not 100%. It's not perfect like the other side, but you can hardly tell. And for me, that's good enough. The beauty about this knife is that this is a knife that I can use. And if I drop it, or if, you know, I accidentally lose it, it's not going to break my heart. And aside from that, now I get a chance to add my story to this knife, and this knife gets a chance to be part of my story, because like I mentioned before, the person who used to own this knife probably passed on in an estate sale where this knife was bought by the eBay seller I got it from, and that person carried this knife and used this knife probably for employment or for pleasure or both. So I intend to do the same. I intend to make this knife useful. I intend to use it when I work outside in my yard, opening things at work and so forth. I don't spend a lot of time in the ocean. I don't like to see it all pretty much, but I'll use it whenever I get a chance. So I'm going to add this knife to my story. Another thing I did was I cleaned right in here where the joint is. And I did my best to go in there with the 2000 grit sandpaper, and just some regular paper that I folded up several times, and I went in there. And I noticed that since I did that, it snaps much better. See, that's a snap. Not bad for a knife from the 1960s, huh? I cleaned in here too, because these are the contact points right here. This knife has a great half stop. And right here, these parts get dirty. And so when you open it, if there's some kind of grime or dirt in there, it won't snap. It'll open, but it just won't snap. That's nice. Let's close it all the way. Has a killer half stop. Let's see. Nice. Very nice. And just a close-up of what I did with the kick. Here I shaved a little bit off the kick, and what that does is that just allows it to close a little bit more. And I could have taken a little bit more off, guys, but I think that's just the perfect amount so that the blade still pops out a little bit, and people will know when they see this that this is a whaler. Okay, guys. Tell me what you think. Keep your knives sharp and keep your wits even sharper. God bless, my friends.